The stars had watched humanity for thousands of years. They had seen humans crawl out of caves, build cities, and finally reach for the sky. Now, in the year 2247, humans had finally touched those stars. But the universe was not happy to see them. Admiral Una stood in the center of a massive hall made of white crystal and floating light. This was Station Nexus, the heart of the Galactic Assembly. For 12,000 years, 73 alien species had gathered here to make laws, form alliances, and decide the fate of worlds. Humans were the newest species to find this place. They had hoped for friendship. They received something else dot around Una. Creatures of all shapes and sizes looked down at her from raised platforms. Some had scales. Some had fur. Some had no solid form at all. Just clouds of glowing gas held together by ancient technology. All of them shared one thing in common. They were looking at Una like she was an insect that had wandered into their home. Commander Taiho stood one step behind Una. He was a tall man with broad shoulders and a face that rarely showed emotion. But today, his jaw was tight. His hands were pressed hard against his sides. He wanted to speak. He wanted to defend his people. But Una had told him to stay quiet. So he did. High Chancellor Morath of the Velphery rose from his throne. He was 3 meters tall, covered in blue-green scales, and had 4 arms that moved like snakes when he talked. The Velphery were the oldest members of the Assembly. They believed this made them better than everyone else. Morath looked at Una the way a giant might look at an ant. So, he said, his voice deep and slow, "These are the humans." He walked down from his platform and circled around Una. His 4 eyes studied her from every angle. Una did not move. She did not blink. She stood like a statue carved from stone. "Small," Morath said. "Soft, no claws. No fangs, no poison. No natural armor." He stopped in front of her and leaned down until his face was close to hers. "Tell me, human, how did your species survive long enough to reach space?" Una met his eyes without fear. "We adapted." Morath laughed. It was not a kind sound. "Adapted? You mean you learned to use tools because your bodies were too weak to fight? You built shelters because your skin could not handle your own planet's weather. You are not survivors. You are accidents. Lucky accidents who should have died 1,000,000 years ago." The Assembly laughed with him. The sound echoed through the crystal hall like thunder. Taiho's hands became fists. A muscle in his cheek jumped. But still, he said nothing. Morath returned to his platform and pulled up a holographic display of Earth. The blue planet floated in the air, slowly spinning. Data scrolled beside it in a language Una could not read. "Your homeworld," Morath announced, "has been classified as a Category 2, Death World. Earthquakes, volcanic eruptions, hurricanes, floods, droughts, ice ages, mass extinctions. Your planet has tried to kill you at least 5 times. And those are just the natural disasters." He changed the display to show Earth's animals. Lions, sharks, crocodiles, venomous snakes, spiders, bacteria. "Your world is filled with predators." Morath continued. "Creatures with teeth and claws and poison. Diseases that can kill millions in months. And yet, somehow, the weakest species on the planet became dominant." He shook his head in disbelief. "You did not evolve to rule. You simply refused to die. That is not strength. That is stubbornness." More laughter from the Assembly while Una remained silent. Her face showed nothing. A delegate from the Morix Collective, a species of tall, thin beings with silver skin, spoke next. "Perhaps we should admire their persistence. Like a weed that grows through concrete. Annoying, but impressive in its own small way." "Weeds are removed from gardens," another delegate replied. They serve no purpose. Now, Morath said, raising one of his 4 hands for silence. We are not here to insult our guests. We are here to evaluate them. He turned back to Yuna. The Galactic Assembly has existed for 12,000 years. We have seen species rise and fall. We have fought wars that burned entire galaxies. We have created technologies that your people cannot even imagine. And we have learned one important truth. He paused for effect. The universe is cruel. It does not reward the weak. It destroys them. Only the strong survive. Only the powerful matter. And humans. He smiled, showing rows of sharp teeth. Humans are neither. Yuna finally spoke. Her voice was calm and clear. What is your decision? Morath seemed surprised that she was not angry or afraid. He studied her face for a long moment, then shrugged with all 4 shoulders. We will grant humanity provisional observer status, he declared. You may watch. You may learn. You may not vote. You may not participate in assembly matters. Perhaps in a few centuries, once you have proven that you are more than lucky survivors, we will reconsider. He waved one hand in dismissal. Until then, stay out of our way. Do not cause trouble. And do not expect us to protect you when danger comes. We do not waste resources on the weak. The assembly cheered. Some delegates clapped. Others made sounds that Yuna assumed were their version of applause. The message was clear. Humans were not welcome. Humans were not respected. Humans were nothing. Yuna bowed her head slightly. Thank you for your time, High Chancellor. She turned and walked toward the exit. Taiho fell into step beside her. Behind them, the laughter continued. When they were finally alone in the corridor outside, Taiho released the breath he had been holding. His whole body was shaking with anger. They have no idea, he said through his teeth. They think we are insects. They think we are jokes. Yuna kept walking. Her boots made no sound on the crystal floor. Admiral, Taiho pressed. We cannot accept this. We must do nothing, Yuna cut him off. Her voice was ice. Not yet. Taiho frowned. Then when? Yuna stopped. She turned to face him, and for the first time, he saw something in her eyes. Not anger, not sadness. Something much more dangerous. Patience. They call this weak, she said softly. They laughed at our bodies, our history, our world. They think they know what humans are. She looked back at the closed doors of the assembly hall. Let them keep thinking that. Let them believe we are harmless. And when the day comes that they need us, when they beg for our help, when they finally understand what we really are, she turned and continued walking. Then, they will learn why the weak, species from the death world, survived when so many others did not. Taiho watched her go. Then, slowly, a small smile crossed his face. The assembly had made a mistake today. They just did not know it yet. 3 years passed like quiet water flowing under a bridge. Humanity stayed in its corner of the galaxy. They built ships. They trained soldiers. They watched and listened and said nothing. The Galactic Assembly forgot about them almost immediately. There were more important matters to discuss. Trade agreements. Border disputes. Ancient arguments between species who had hated each other for thousands of years. The small, weak humans from the death world were not worth remembering. Then the darkness came. It started with silence. A colony on the edge of explored space stopped sending messages. Then another. Then another. Ships sent to investigate never returned. Scouts reported seeing something in the void between stars. Something massive. Something wrong. The Kreth had arrived. They came from beyond the galactic rim, from the empty blackness where no light had ever reached. They were not a species. They were a hunger. Their ships were made of metal and flesh twisted together, living machines that ate everything in their path. Planets, moons, stars, entire civilizations. The Kreth consumed them all and grew stronger with every meal. The Galactic Assembly had heard stories about the Kreth, old legends, ancient warnings carved into dead monuments on forgotten worlds. Every 10,000 years, the story said, the swarm returns to feed. But legends were for children. The assembly was made of scientists and warriors and rulers. They did not believe in monsters. They believed now. Captain John Ho stood on the bridge of the Earth vessel Defiance and watched the end of the Velthari Empire. The main view screen showed footage captured by long-range sensors. Velthari Prime, a planet of crystal towers and floating cities, was burning. The sky above it was black with Kreth ships. Thousands of them. Millions of them. So many that they blocked out the sun. Lieutenant Hana sat at the communications console, her face pale in the light of the screen. She had been listening to transmissions from the battle. The screams had stopped an hour ago. The Velthari fleet is gone, she reported. Her voice was flat, empty of emotion. It was the only way she could speak without crying. 5,000 warships. The largest fleet in the assembly. They lasted 6 hours. Jun Ho said nothing. He just watched. On the screen, a Kreth carrier, a ship the size of a small moon, descended toward Velthari Prime. It opened like a mouth, revealing rows of teeth made from the hulls of consumed vessels. The planet began to crack. Oceans boiled away. Mountains crumbled. And then, slowly, the world itself was pulled apart and swallowed. High Chancellor Morith's final transmission played on loop in the background. The same voice that had mocked humanity 3 years ago was now screaming for help. Begging, crying, then nothing but static. They are requesting aid, Hana said. The Assembly is calling every member species. Anyone who can fight. Anyone who can help. John Ho turned away from the screen. He looked at his crew. 50 men and women who had left Earth, knowing they might never return. They were watching him, waiting for orders. Contact Admiral Yuna, he said quietly. Tell her the Assembly is begging. The message traveled across thousands of light years in seconds. Earth received it. Earth considered it. And Earth made a decision. The response came 1 hour later. It was broadcast on every frequency, in every language, to every corner of the galaxy. One word. Just one dot, no dot. The Assembly panicked. Delegates who had laughed at humanity now sent personal messages to Earth, offering friendship, alliance, anything. The Morix Collective promised trade deals worth trillions of credits. The Hollow Kings of Nebula 6 offered ancient technology. Species that had called humans insects and weeds suddenly remembered that they were all brothers in the great family of sentient life. Earth did not respond. JUNHO received updated orders from Command. The Defiance and all other Earth vessels were to return to Sol System immediately. They were to avoid contact with alien ships. They were to speak to no one. As the Defiance turned toward home, Hana looked at Junho with confusion in her eyes. Sir, why are we leaving? Millions of beings are dying. We have ships. We have weapons. We could help. Junho watched the stars streak past as the ship entered faster than light travel. We could, he agreed. Then why don't we? Junho was quiet for a long time. When he finally spoke, his voice was heavy with something that might have been sadness, or anger, or both. 3 years ago, I stood beside Admiral Yuna in that assembly hall. I heard them laugh at us. I watched them call us weak, primitive, worthless. They said they would not waste resources protecting us. They said we were on our own. He turned to face Hana. Now they want our help. Now they remember that we exist. But for 3 years, they ignored us. They treated us like dirt beneath their feet. They made it very clear that humanity did not matter. His eyes hardened. So now, when the darkness comes for them, when their mighty fleets burn and their proud empires fall, they can face it alone. Just like they told us we would have to. Hannah looked down at her console. She understood. She did not like it. But she understood. The Defiance continued its journey home. Behind them, the galaxy burned. One by one, the great civilizations fell. The Marx Collective, known for their massive armadas and advanced shields, surrendered without firing a shot. The Kreth consumed them anyway. The Hollow Kings of Nebula 6 chose to destroy their own worlds rather than let the swarm take them. Their final act was a chain of explosions that lit up the nebula like a funeral fire. Species that had existed for millions of years were erased in days. Libraries containing the knowledge of 1,000 generations were lost. Songs that had been sung since before Earth's sun was born were silenced forever. And still, the Kreth advanced. Earth watched. Earth waited. Earth counted the days until the swarm would reach Sol System. In the underground bunker beneath New Sol, Admiral Una studied the tactical displays. The Kreth were moving faster now, growing larger with every world they consumed. At their current rate, they would reach Earth in 90 days. Commander Taiho entered the room and stood beside her. "The assembly is destroyed," he reported. 19 species remain. The rest are gone. Una nodded slowly. "And the Kreth?" "Still coming." Una turned off the display. The room fell into darkness. "Then it is time," she said. Taiho felt a chill run down his spine. "Protocol Omega?" Una did not answer. She simply walked toward the door that led deeper into the bunker. Toward the room that only 12 people in human history had ever entered. The universe had called humanity weak. The universe had laughed and mocked and turned its back. Now the universe was dying, and only the weak species remained. It was time to show them why. The bunker beneath New Sol had existed for 200 years. It was built in secret, funded by money that appeared in no budget, constructed by workers who were paid to forget what they had seen. Officially, it did not exist. Unofficially, it was the most important building on Earth. Admiral Una walked through corridors that grew older with each step. The walls changed from modern metal to ancient concrete to bare stone carved from the bedrock itself. Lights became fewer. The air became colder. And finally, she reached a door made of solid steel, 3 meters thick, covered in dust and silence. The World Council waited inside. There were 12 of them. The most powerful leaders on Earth. Presidents and generals and directors of agencies that the public had never heard of. They sat around a circular table in a room lit by a single harsh light. Their faces were tired. Their eyes were afraid. But they were here because there was nowhere else to go. Una took her place at the head of the table. Commander Taiho stood behind her like a shadow. "You all know why we are here," Una began. Her voice was calm, almost gentle. "The Kreth will reach Sol System in 87 days. Our fleet is 300 ships. Their swarm is estimated at 9 million vessels. We cannot win a conventional war." The council members shifted in their seats. Some looked down. Others looked at each other. None of them spoke. "We have 2 options," Una continued. "First, we can evacuate. Scatter our population across 1,000 colony ships and hope that some of us survive. We would become refugees, wandering the galaxy forever, always running, never safe." She paused. "Second, we activate Protocol Omega." The room became very quiet. Even the hum of the air system seemed to fade away. Director Minho of the Defense Research Division stood up slowly. He was an old man with white hair and tired eyes. He had worked on Protocol Omega for 40 years. He had hoped he would die before it was ever needed. For those who were not fully briefed, he said, "Let me explain what Protocol Omega really is." He pressed a button on the table. Holographic displays flickered to life, filling the room with blue light. Star maps, technical diagrams, weapon systems that looked like nightmares made of mathematics. When humanity first reached for the stars, Minho began, we were excited, full of hope. But our leaders were not foolish. They knew that the universe was old and vast. They knew that somewhere out there, things existed that could destroy us without effort. So while the public dreamed of friendship with alien species, we prepared for war. The display changed to show Earth's solar system. Tiny dots of light appeared in the asteroid belt, on the moons of Jupiter and Saturn, hidden in the rings of Neptune. For 200 years, we have been building weapons, not just in our own system, everywhere. The display zoomed out. More dots appeared. Hundreds of them. Thousands of them. Scattered across the galaxy like seeds planted in secret gardens. We placed satellites around every star we visited. We hid bombs in asteroids near major trade routes. We buried devices on moons and planets that other species never thought to check. And every time we traded with the Assembly, every time we shared technology or bought their goods, we included gifts they did not know about. Counselor Subin, the youngest member of the group, leaned forward. What kind of gifts? Minho's face was pale. Nanits. Microscopic machines designed to eat metal, dissolve organic matter, or rewrite genetic code. We put them in food supplies, water systems, engine parts, medical equipment. Every species that touched human technology now has our weapons inside their civilization, sleeping, waiting. The room was completely silent. We did more than that, Minho continued. We mapped every strategic location in the galaxy, every choke point, every supply line, every planet that matters. We created viruses that can target specific species based on their biology. We designed gravity weapons that can crush entire fleets into the size of a coin. We built things that I cannot even describe because there are no words for them. He turned off the display. The room fell back into shadow. Protocol Omega is not a weapon, he said quietly. It is the end of everything. If we activate it, we will not just destroy the Krath. We will destroy anyone who threatens us. Anyone who might threaten us. Anyone who could possibly become a threat in the future. We will burn the galaxy to ashes and build a new one from the ruins. Admiral Yuna spoke into the silence. The Assembly called us weak because we have no claws, no fangs, no armor. They forgot that weakness is what made us dangerous. We could not rely on our bodies, so we learned to use our minds. We could not fight with strength, so we learned to fight with planning. We could not survive by being the strongest, so we became the most prepared. She looked around the table at each council member. Every human who has lived in the last 200 years has contributed to this moment. Scientists who developed technologies in secret. Soldiers who trained for wars they hoped would never come. Workers who built weapons and then forgot they existed. All of them, living their lives, never knowing that they were part of something larger. She stood up. The universe thinks we are weak. The Krath think we will be easy prey. The surviving species of the Assembly think we are cowards hiding in our little corner of space. They are all wrong. Her voice rose, filling the room like thunder. Humans do not fight to win. We fight to make sure our enemies lose everything. We do not survive by being stronger than our attackers. We survive by being willing to do what no other species will do. We survive because when everything else has failed, when hope is gone and death is certain, we become something that the universe has never seen before. She pressed her hand against the activation panel on the table. It glowed red, waiting for a command. We become monsters. The council members looked at each other. They looked at the panel. They looked at YUNA. Director Minho spoke first. If we do this, there is no going back. The galaxy will never be the same. We will be remembered as the species that ended an era. Yuna nodded. Yes, we will. And we will also be remembered as the species that survived. The species that refused to die. The species that taught the universe to fear the weak. One by one, the council members voted. 11 hands rose in agreement. Only Subin hesitated. If we do this, she asked, what does that make us? Yuna looked at her with eyes that held no doubt. Alive. Subin's hand rose. Admiral Yuna activated Protocol Omega. Across the galaxy. In places no one had ever thought to look, ancient machines began to wake up. Satellites powered on. Bombs armed themselves. Nanites stirred from their long sleep. And somewhere in the void between stars, the Kreth swarm continued its advance. Completely unaware that it was swimming toward a trap 200 years in the making. The weak species from the death world was ready. Now the universe would learn why. The Kreth swarm entered Sol System on a cold Tuesday morning. Not that it mattered what day it was. The sun still rose over Earth. Birds still sang. Children still played in parks and streets, unaware that 9 million enemy ships were passing Jupiter at that very moment. The government had not told them. There was no point in causing panic. Either humanity would win or humanity would die. Fear would not change the outcome. Captain Junho stood on the bridge of the flagship, Eternal Soul, and watched the enemy approach. The tactical display showed the Kreth as a red wave spreading across the system. They moved like a single creature, each ship connected to the others through some kind of hive mind. When one turned, they all turned. When one attacked, they all attacked. Fighting them was like fighting the ocean. Lieutenant Hana sat at her station, her fingers moving across the console. The enemy fleet will reach optimal firing range in 47 minutes. Any response to our communications? Junho asked. Hana shook her head. Nothing yet. In the engine room, Chief Engineer Do-hyun monitored the ship's prototype reactor. It was a new design, something developed specifically for this mission. If everything went according to plan, they would not need it. If everything went wrong, it would be their last option. The human fleet arranged itself between Earth and the approaching swarm. 300 ships. Cruisers, destroyers, carriers, and support vessels. They formed a wall of metal and light, a final barrier between the enemy and everything humanity had ever built. It was not enough. Everyone knew it was not enough. But they were not planning to win through force. Junho opened the channel to Admiral Yuna on the surface. Admiral, we are in position. Yuna's voice came through the speakers, calm and steady. Hold your formation. Do not fire until I give the order. Understood. The minutes passed slowly. The Kreth grew larger on the display. Their ships were terrible to look at, twisted combinations of metal and organic matter. Some had eyes. Some had mouths. All of them radiated a hunger that could be felt even through the sensors. Then, finally, a transmission came through. The main view screen flickered and changed. A face appeared, though calling it a face was generous. It was a mass of flesh and wires and stolen memories. The collected consciousness of 1 billion consumed beings merged into one terrible whole. The Kreth overmined. Small ones, it spoke. Its voice was a chorus of millions, all the souls it had eaten speaking at once. We have watched you. We have tasted your signals, your broadcasts, your dreams. We know what you are. Soft, weak, brief. Your lives are sparks. Your civilization is a sandcastle waiting for the tide. Junho did not flinch. He had heard worse things from his own commanders during training. You will feed you. the Overmind continued. Your bodies will become fuel. Your memories will join the collective. Your technology will be absorbed. Your world will be digested. This is not cruelty. This is nature. The strong consume the weak. The old devours the new. This is how the universe has always worked. The Overmind paused, and something that might have been a smile crossed its horrible face. Surrender now, and your end will be gentle. Resist, and I too will be slow. Either way, the outcome is the same. You will become part of US. Junho leaned forward in his command chair. I have a counter-offer. The Overmind's many eyes focused on him. Junho smiled. It was the smile of a man who knew something that his enemy did not. Run, the Overmind laughed. The sound was terrible, like bones breaking and children crying and storms tearing apart cities. It echoed through the ship, through the fleet, through every human who could hear. It, foolish creature, we have consumed civilizations that were old when your son was young. We have devoured species that thought themselves gods. What can your tiny fleet do against the endless hunger? Admiral Yuna's voice cut through the noise. It was broadcast on every frequency, in every language, to every ship in the system and beyond. The surviving species scattered across the galaxy heard it. The refugees hiding in dark corners of space heard it. Everyone heard it. This is Admiral Yuna of the United Earth Defense Fleet. The laughter stopped. You are broadcasting to all survivors? The Overmind asked. There was something new in its voice. Something that might have been curiosity. Yes, Yuna replied. Because what happens next is a lesson. And I want everyone to learn from it. She paused to let her words sink in. To the Kreth, you came to our system expecting prey. You came expecting fear and submission. You came expecting an easy meal. You were wrong. On the bridge of the Eternal Soul, Hana's console began flashing. Sir, energy readings across the system. Something is powering up. To the surviving species of the Galactic Assembly, Yuna continued. You called us weak. You mocked our bodies, our world, our history. You said we were insects. You said we would never matter. Watch what happens now, and remember, we could have done this to any of you, at any time, for the last 200 years. We chose not to. The Overmind's expression changed. Its countless faces showed confusion. Its billion minds could not understand what was happening. You chose not to do what? It demanded. Yuna's voice became ice. Protocol Omega is now active. Across Sol System, satellites that had floated unseen for decades came to life. In the asteroid belt, machines buried deep within rocks began transmitting codes that had waited centuries to be sent. On Mars, hidden facilities opened doors that had never been touched by sunlight. And within the Kreth fleet itself, in the engines and weapons and bodies of 9 million ships, microscopic machines that had been sleeping since they were first planted received their final command. The first Kreth ship exploded without warning, then the second, then the third, then 100, then 1,000, then more. Nanites that had been quietly infiltrating the swarm for months suddenly activated. They ate through metal. They dissolved organic matter. They rewrote the code that held the hybrid ships together. Vessels that had traveled across galaxies began to fall apart from the inside. Gravity bombs hidden in the asteroid belt fired. Space itself bent and twisted, crushing ships like paper cups. Biological agents released into the swarm's network caused the Overmind's control to fail. Ships that had once moved as one now crashed into each other, unable to coordinate. The Kreth tried to flee. Their navigation systems were corrupted. Their weapons turned against them. Their engines burned through their own hulls. On the view screen, The Overmind's face showed something that the Kreth had not felt in 10,000 years of hunting. Fear. What is this? It screamed. What are you? Junho stood up from his chair. Behind him, his crew watched in silence. We are human, he said simply. And you made a mistake. The Overmind's form flickered. Its voices became chaos. Its billion minds could not process what was happening. It had consumed species that ruled galaxies. It had devoured civilizations that bent space and time. And now it was being destroyed by creatures it had considered food. Impossible. It howled. We are eternal. We are inevitable. We are the largest Kreth ship, the carrier that held the Overmind's core consciousness, folded in on itself like a flower closing. Gravity crushed it into a point smaller than an atom. And then it was gone in 17 minutes. The largest armada the galaxy had ever seen was reduced to drifting wreckage and silent dust. The human fleet had not fired a single shot. Nho sat back down in his chair. His hands were shaking. His heart was racing. But his voice was steady when he spoke. Lieutenant Hana, send a message to all surviving species. Hana looked at him, her eyes wide with what she had just witnessed. What should I say? Junho looked at the view screen, where the remains of 9 million ships floated like dead leaves on a forgotten wind. Tell them we're still here, and ask them if they still think we're weak. 6 months had passed since the Battle of Seoul. The galaxy was quiet now. Not the peaceful quiet of sleeping children or calm oceans. This was the quiet of survivors emerging from ruins, looking around at what remained, and trying to understand how to move forward. Of the 73 species that had once filled the Galactic Assembly, only 19 still existed. Some had been completely destroyed by the Kreth. Others had fled so far into the unknown, reaches of space that they might never return. The great empires that had ruled for thousands of years were now memories, their proud capitals floating as debris fields around dead stars. Station Nexus still stood, though its crystal halls were mostly empty now. The delegates who gathered there did not sit in raised platforms looking down at others. They sat together at a single table, equals in survival if nothing else. Admiral Yuna walked through those halls for the second time in her life. Commander Taiho walked beside her, as he always had. But this time, no one laughed. No one whispered insults. The aliens they passed stepped aside and lowered their heads in respect. Or maybe it was fear. It was hard to tell the difference. The assembly chamber was almost empty. 19 representatives sat where 73 had once argued and debated and made grand speeches about the nature of civilization. They watched Yuna approach with eyes that held 1,000 questions. A young Velthari rose from his seat. His name was Torrance, and he was the new High Chancellor. The previous one, Morath, had died screaming on Velthari Prime. Torrance had been a minor official then, too unimportant to be targeted. Now he led what remained of his people. Admiral Yuna, he said. His voice was quiet, nothing like Morath's booming confidence. Thank you for coming. Yuna nodded. You asked to speak with me. Torrance looked around at the other delegates. They nodded, encouraging him to continue. He took a deep breath. On behalf of the surviving species of the Galactic Assembly, I want to say, thank you. The words seemed to cause him physical pain. You saved us. All of us. We would have been destroyed without your intervention. Yuna's face showed nothing. Yes, you would have. We treated you terribly, Torrance continued. We mocked you. We dismissed you. We called you weak and primitive and worthless. We refused to help you and told you that you were on your own. He paused, struggling with what came next. And when the darkness came for us, you could have let us die. You had every right to. But you didn't. We did let you die, Yuna said flatly. 54 species were destroyed while we watched. We saved no one until the Kreth reached our own system. The delegates shifted uncomfortably. Some looked away. Taranth nodded slowly. Yes, that's true. And we deserved it. He spread his 4 hands in a gesture of openness. So I have to ask, why? Why did you reveal your weapons? Why did you save the galaxy? You could have destroyed the Kreth quietly. Let everyone think they had simply moved on. You could have kept your secret forever. Instead, you showed everyone what you were capable of. Why? Yuna was quiet for a long moment. Then she stepped forward, and every delegate in the room tensed. They could not help it. They had seen what humanity could do. They knew that the small, soft, clawless woman in front of them commanded weapons that could end their civilizations in minutes. I will tell you why, Yuna said. But first, I want you to understand something. She looked around the room, meeting each delegate's eyes in turn. For 200 years, we prepared for this day. We built weapons in secret. We planted traps across the galaxy. We developed technologies that you cannot imagine, designed to destroy any threat that might come for us. And we did all of this while you laughed at us. While you called us insects and weeds. While you refused us membership in your precious assembly and told us we were not worth protecting. Her voice hardened. We could have used these weapons on you at any time. We could have dominated the galaxy decades ago. We could have taken revenge for every insult, every dismissal, every moment of disrespect. We chose not to. Why? Taranth asked again. Yuna's expression softened slightly. Because that is not who we are. Humans are not conquerors. We do not seek power for its own sake. We do not want to rule others or force them to obey. We simply want to live, to grow, to explore and create and love and dream. All the weapons we built, all the terrible things we prepared, were only ever meant for one purpose: to protect ourselves. To make sure that when the universe tried to destroy us, we would survive. She turned away from Taranth and addressed the entire assembly. We showed you what we could do because we wanted to be honest. We wanted there to be no more misunderstandings. Now you know the truth about humanity. We are not weak. We are not helpless. We are not prey. But we are also not your enemies. We do not want your thrones or your empires or your submission. She paused. We want only one thing: to be left in peace. Grant us that, and we will be the best friends you have ever had. We will trade with you, learn from you, share with you. We will stand beside you when new threats arise. We will be part of this galaxy, not as servants or as masters, but as equals. Her eyes turned cold. But if anyone ever threatens us again, if anyone ever tries to harm our people, our world, our future, then what happened to the Kreth will seem gentle by comparison. The room was silent. No one moved. No one breathed. Taranth finally spoke. We understand. And we accept. The other delegates nodded, one by one. Yuna smiled. It was a small smile, tired, but genuine. Good. Then let us begin building something new together. Outside the assembly chamber, Captain Jonho watched from the observation deck of the Eternal Soul. The ship was stationed permanently above. Station Nexus now. A silent reminder of what humanity could do if pushed too far. Lieutenant Hannah stood beside him, her arms crossed. Do you think they really learned their lesson? She asked. JUNHO watched a Velthri transport ship change its course to avoid coming anywhere near them. Look at how they move around us. They used to ignore human ships completely. Now they treat us like we're made of fire. Hannah nodded slowly. Fear is a powerful teacher. It's not just fear, Junho said. It's respect. Real respect, earned through action. They know now that we were never weak. We were just patient. Down on Earth, In a quiet garden in the rebuilt city of New Seoul, Admiral Yuna stood before a small stone marker. It bore no name, just simple words carved into gray stone. For those who kept the secret, for those who built the shield, for those who made sure humanity would never bow. She placed a small bundle of flowers at the base of the marker. White flowers for peace, red flowers for sacrifice, yellow flowers for hope. Commander Taiho stood behind her, giving her space. "It's over," he said quietly. "We won." Yuna shook her head. "It's never over. There will be new threats, new enemies, new challenges we cannot yet imagine. The universe is vast and old and full of dangers." She stood up and brushed the dirt from her hands. "But we are ready. We have always been ready. That is the human way. We do not wait for the storm to come and then build shelter. We build the shelter first, in secret, in silence. And when the storm arrives, we are already safe inside." She turned and walked away from the memorial, toward the future that waited beyond the garden walls. Behind her, the flowers swayed in the gentle wind. Somewhere in the galaxy, in the wreckage of the Kreth swarm, a single transmission still repeated on an endless loop. It was humanity's message to the universe, to any threat that might come after. We were never weak. We were waiting. The sun set over New Seoul, painting the sky in shades of gold and red. Children played in the streets. Families sat down to dinner. Life continued, as it always had, as it always would. Earth had survived. Humanity had survived. And now the galaxy knew the truth. The weak species from the Death World was the most dangerous civilization that had ever existed. Not because of their weapons or their technology or their numbers, but because they had learned, long ago, that the only way to truly survive was to be ready for anything. And they always would be.